Welcome to Containerized Conversations. I'm Josh Warhurst, and with me is
Jesse Caffarelli.
Hey, Jesse. So, semi-recently, you got a new job.
Mhm.
You went into the wonderful ocean that is the job market, and you fought some sharks. You got a job. But you have some pretty big lessons about the current job market in the year
Yeah.
2025 that I think are worth repeating. You've told me a couple times, but why don't you tell our fair audience how things are going?
So today is June the 18th of 2025. So I can't say that this will still work for whenever you're listening. But I will have to say this is my experience of finding a new job. Um towards the end of 2024. 2024 hits.
Whoa.
AI is rampant, running around. Everybody is using it, from your HVAC technician to your HR to recruiters. And everyone thinks AI is the next big thing. And it does better than any person can do. So if you're a recruiter, if you're an HR person, and you're just getting slammed with thousands of resumes, because everybody's looking for a job nowadays too. How do you get through this insurmountable amount of resumes? You can't read them all, but you want to know who the best are. You want to know who the worst are. How do you do that? Well, let's use AI. And that's what I was finding a lot of recruiters, HR people were doing.
So what you're talking about, to be clear, is the AI realm started being customer facing. Now a ton of people are making products, money's pouring in, and people also need to make money
Yep.
in spite of their huge amount of costs that are coming in with running AI. They're saying, hey, how do I sell this? Which is part of it. And they're selling tools to a lot of different places, like HVAC people. It's not just people putting into ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever AI of their choice. They're not going and saying, hey, this is what I'm looking for. How should I find the best candidate? And having the AI telling them, no, you're talking about them using AI to actually filter candidates. Is that what's happening?
Yeah. So I actually think end of 2023 was the hot new ChatGPT. Everyone's using it. You could create your resume with ChatGPT. You could create paragraphs. You could say goodbye letters. Everything with ChatGPT was like the end of 2023. So when 2024 hit, where everyone was using it, including people who are looking for new jobs that had a resume that maybe wasn't super powerful, they could input this in the ChatGPT and make really powerful words. As an HR person or as a recruiter or someone who could just read resumes, it wasn't meaningful enough to just read these resumes because every resume sounded amazing. So what it used to be back in like 2017 when I was looking for a job, if you ran across a resume that had really impactful words, it usually meant that that person was impactful. But you fast forward now into 2024, you can make something sound super impactful from something that's very mundane. It's really hard to parse through that. If you're a recruiter, you're going to look for tools that can help you cut away the noise. The tools everyone's using allows you to kind of adjust the slider scale of possibility that this resume is written by AI. And they can decide any resume that's written this percentage over AI, throw it out.
You're saying they would see something, they would take all the resumes they have, put it through some detection machine, and it would say, okay, we have some threshold, say 10%. If there's even a 10% chance it was written AI, toss it out and give me everything else, like a big filter.
Now, I don't know this for sure, but my theory is that
let's get into conspiracy theories here.
Put my tinfoil hat on. I think that they were getting so many resumes that they had to put the slider down to 0. They only wanted resumes at 0%. Because they were getting maybe like 2,000 resumes. If they had it at 10%, they would have 500 resumes. That's still way too many to go through. If they put it down to 0, they would have 8.
What explains some of the speeds too? I've heard from a lot of friends, people that are in this current market looking around, that they'll go and they'll submit a resume
Yeah.
and they'll get a response a month and a half later saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
we right," and that makes sense,
They
right?
notched it up.
Yeah, they notched it up, and then at that
Yeah.
point, then they're finally getting the call. And I know you could explain this through traditional means as well, saying, "Hey, there's a lot of companies that are understaffed in their hiring department. They need to hire tons of people. They can't manage this, and it does end up taking them a month and a half, right?" There's also lots of reasonable explanations, but the fact is, like you say, if there's even a chance that people are going to
Yeah.
detect it as AI and filter it this way, then you need to be aware of it so you can say, update your resume so that it's not getting filtered by some of these schemes. And I know that's hard,
Yeah.
right? Because you make it filtered by you use one tool and it goes in and says 0% chance. And then you give it to some other tool and now it's 15%.
Yeah.
You say, I was 0% over there, it's 15% over here. Like,
my strategy is I should be one of the first candidates that a recruiter is evaluating. If I'm not one of the first candidates, I'm last. And no matter how good of a candidate I think I am, I should always be one of the first candidates on their desk. And so the strategies I always try to implement is that make sure your resume is almost 0% chance written by AI. I've taken my resume from 2017, something where I wrote it myself. AI wasn't even a thing. I put it in this AI detector and it told me it was like a 15 or 20% chance that it was written by AI. That's basically 20% chance I'm a robot.
I will say that I've met a lot of programmers who could definitely be mistaken for robots.
That's the problem, especially with like people in our industry. Yeah. You are gonna write like a robot sometimes. That's just how it works. So,
well, it's one of those things where when you talk about recruiting and you're talking about like resumes and you're talking about finding a job, the hardest thing is these are skills that you don't use in your daily life.
Yeah.
When you're working on the job, you're not editing resumes, your own history. Yeah. You're looking at, how do I optimize my system? Yep. When you're interviewing and you have to like talk before a panel of 4 people and you don't like public speaking, that's not what you do in the job. Like on the job, you're looking to make sure that, hey, when we're actually detecting the errors that we're finding. Like it's just totally separate.
Insane.
But in this world, for some reason, that's how you get a job. So, you know, you might hate it. It's kind of like, I feel like linked lists are silly. And that then, and people will say, why should I learn a linked list? Like, well, it'll help you with interviews. There are things like that where it's like, this is just useful in this one specific case, but
for sure,
listen.
That's the thing is like what I'm saying is not necessarily means you're not going to get the job or you're doing it the wrong way. It's just this is what I found that helps me in my situation. It comes from a very specific standpoint of I want to min-max the strategy. And so everything I came up with, one, make sure your resume is almost 0% chance written by AI, which means I'm going to be one of the first people evaluated by recruiters and HR people. And then 2, my strategy of applying for jobs on LinkedIn is I would look for the jobs that were just posted, literally within the last 24 hours.
That's good advice.
But a lot of jobs and a lot of companies will repost jobs to make it seem like they are looking for people because it's really good from an investor's point of view. If it looks like you're reposting, if you're posting a lot of jobs on LinkedIn. And so you have to be really careful. Just because you applied to this job that was just posted 12 hours ago doesn't mean it was the same job that was posted 30 days ago. And if you go through this for the next 30 days, if you're one of those people like me who was looking for a job for like 6 months, what you do find is the same job is reposting on LinkedIn. Pay attention to the jobs you're posting to. Don't just like robot it, because what you'll find is the same job is kind of reposted multiple times. You know it's a dead job. Don't even waste your time applying to it. What I actually started doing was finding the smaller companies. Look for companies local to maybe your area on LinkedIn. That's a really good strategy. Smaller companies that maybe only have like 300 employees or less, those are almost guaranteed. If it was posted within the last like 24 hours or even like 7 days, it probably is a fresh job they're actually looking for. Apply to those. Focus, put all of your energy into that. And I would only post to jobs that were posted within the last 24 hours within my area. Once I did those types of strategies, that was when I found a job right away.
One thing I liked, you've said in the past that your resume tells a story. You want to have your resume tell the story of you as a person,
Yep.
so that theoretically they're going to know something about you, so that when they interview you, you can theoretically fit into that position.
For sure.
Not like a square peg in a round hole. You're basically giving them strong details. What do you mean by that? What are some examples?
This tip is actually for people who keep finding jobs that they don't necessarily like and they don't know why. It's because your resume tells the story of you, and your resume is formulated in a way to capture specific companies and specific people they're looking for to fill those positions. A perfect example is my resume. My first resumes that I've ever created, what you would read in them is a lot of companies being acquired. And not only that, but I've really wanted to work at startups. And my thought was, if I wrote my resume in a way that highlighted or accentuated the fact that I've worked at companies that have been acquired, I would be more of a candidate to be hired at startups, because those startup companies would be like, hey, he already knows how to make those companies big. Let's do it. What I'm starting to find is that my resume, it was actually very specifically tailored to companies who wanted to be acquired or who were in the process of being acquired, and they needed someone with that specialized experience of startups being acquired that needed the type of knowledge that acquisitions needed to do to actually go through. And so my resume, for some reason, I kept getting hired at startups that were about to be acquired. And I had no idea why, but that's when I realized my resume very much read like a candidate who is perfect to hire if you're a company who is about to be acquired and you wanted to make sure your company was actually acquired without any hiccups. I was the perfect person to be hired for.
Right.
My experience is very extreme. But it's a very good example of how you should write your resume. If you apply for a company and that company is looking for an SRE that knows how to go to distance and solve any problem, then your resume should read like that. You should read like, I am the person that can go the extra mile. I am always the person that's always involved. You should have bullet points that reads, this person's super important.
One thing I want to add is that a lot of people feel embarrassed giving their resume to a friend or a family member. It feels personal. It's almost like a dating profile or something like that. It feels like, oh, this is weird if I give it out to people. But the fact is, like when I worked in the games industry, when you develop something yourself, you don't know really how it's going to be handled by other people. The moment somebody else reads it, then they notice things that you would never notice.
Yeah.
Like if you make a video game and you're like, oh, it's really easy to defeat the first boss. I do it without losing any health every single time.
Yeah.
Then you put it in front of people and they're dying every single time. Right. Yeah. It's super complicated. And you don't see that because you know the strategy, that the winning strategy. The same theory goes with resumes and other works. When you go and you've written it yourself, you know yourself deeply on a personal level. Yeah. Hopefully you understand who you are. Give it to other people, because especially people right? You might feel embarrassed, but they know you in different ways. And they say, this isn't capturing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've worked with you and you did way better stuff than this or that, right? I think make sure that you're putting your resume out there to people and getting their immediate feedback, because the companies will not give you that feedback.
Yeah.
The companies will read your resume and say, we don't need this person, right? Like, this was kind of worded weirdly. We don't need, like, it doesn't seem like this person has the knowledge here, right? Yeah. So my only tip that I would add is make sure you put it in front of people who are going to give you that feedback instantly.
Oh, for sure.
And who actually understand where you're coming from. And don't feel embarrassed, because you're going to get embarrassed during interviews. So just...
Well, yeah. And the only extra thing I would add on top of that is, for people who may not have a job right now and are looking for a job, it might sound counterintuitive, but my suggestion would be, do not spend 100% of your time looking for a job. And the reason why I say that is, there's been so many jobs that I've been turned away from because my GitHub handle hasn't been contributing to open source in any way, shape, or form. You would be amazed at the amount of people who would actually think it's more important for you to be contributing to open source in some way, shape, or form. So
instead of making the company that you've been working at for the past X years a better company.
Yeah. So what I would say is, if you're looking for a new job and you can't find one, spend only 20% of your time looking for a new job. The 80% of the time, you should be contributing to open source. Find a tool you agree with, find a provider. Let's say you worked with Terraform. Do Terraform providers. Start a podcast. Do something else that isn't looking for a job, because that's going to be so much more powerful than your resume. So that's my final thought.
This has been good conversation, and I think if somebody is out there looking for a job, I hope this is useful. And honestly, leave us comments, like the things that have helped you in the current market, because the market changes. Again, this is just like anything else in this industry. It changes so fast. The stuff that was useful 6 months ago might not be useful now, right? And if you listen to this in the year 2027 and, robots have replaced people, let us know how we're very wrong. And with that, that's our containerized conversation. I'm your co-host, Josh Warhurst.
And I'm your co-host, Jesse Caffarelli. You have a good night.